Since Dana White began getting involved in promoting boxing, a fierce rivalry, as expected, started to grow between him and the other boxing promoters, especially with Eddie Hearn, the owner of Matchroom Boxing, who is considered the biggest boxing promoter in the UK. And despite the many verbal exchanges between him and Dana, their clashes remained within a competitive but respectful framework.
We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and we're gonna do this. Where were you the last 20 years? You didn't do sh**.
I'm a little bit concerned with what I saw from Dana because I like Dana. I don't want it to go like this for him. You've lost your shit already. We haven't even started yet. I mean, you haven't got a boxing product yet.
But the moment Zuffa Boxing began operating, Eddie's tone toward Dana changed, and Dana's toward Eddie as well. They had now become direct competitors, and Dana's harsh criticism of boxing organizations, along with portraying himself as the savior coming to rescue the sport, certainly did nothing to reduce the tension between them. And he, along with other boxing promoters, especially Oscar De La Hoya, who regularly dismantles Dana in his weekly series, had been heavily criticizing the product that Dana White claimed would change boxing, particularly after several underwhelming shows from Zuffa Boxing.
I'll say this, if I put on that card, I would get absolutely rinsed. I'd get abused for a month.
After Zuffa's third event, which was far better than the first two, Dana arrived at the press conference in high spirits. And when he was asked about the criticism coming from the traditional boxing establishment, he responded with an extremely aggressive answer.
There hasn't been any pushback. Okay. This is like beating up babies. I feel like I came in and I'm beating up babies.
He then began directly targeting Eddie Hearn, following Eddie's comments about the Zuffa belt on the show of a sworn enemy. And I honestly don't know whether Dana had inside information at the time.
And I don't want to sit here and smash Eddie Hearn or anything else, but Eddie Hearn works for his dad. He works for Dad. And, I don't think he's come in and ever had any type of vision, whereas we do. And we're gonna change the entire sport. And I understand the people who are the status quo in boxing don't like it.
And by the way, if you enjoyed the breakdown, please make sure to hit the likes and of course subscribe, aiming for the 1K subs with your support. Much thanks. Before we continue, Dana sounds a bit hypocritical when he talks about Eddie as being just a nepo baby, because Dana himself likely wouldn't have reached where he is today without the financial backing of Frank and Lorenzo for the UFC, and without the generous contributions of Turki Al Sheikh in boxing. Up until that moment, no one really knew what Dana was planning, but that sudden attack actually felt refreshing, because it took us 15 years back in time to when Dana used to attack other promoters out of pure passion and love for the sport. In the week that Dana White made those comments, it seemed they hit Eddie Hearn right at his core. He began firing back with harsh criticism toward Dana, claiming that if he himself worked with his father, then Dana was the son of many fathers. And how times change. Once the flow of money stopped, Turki Al Sheikh went from being a source of happiness for Eddie.
I have no problem working for His Excellency. If he asked me to clean his shoes, I would probably do it.
To just another man in his eyes.
I do work for my dad, but he's worked for his dad for many years. First set was the Fertitta brothers. They were his dad. Now he's got a new pappy, and the new pappy is Turki Al Sheikh. So really, Turki is Dana's daddy.
Unfortunately for Eddie, his attacks didn't have the effect he hoped for, because the very next day, February 20th, Dana practically buried him when he announced that Zuffa Boxing had signed one of the best boxers under Eddie Hearn's Matchroom boxing banner, Conor Benn, to a one-fight deal with the company. And to understand how painful this news must have been for Eddie, just look at everything he had done for Conor over the years. He signed him in 2016 when Conor was fighting his very first professional bout under Matchroom. He placed him on several major cards headlined by Anthony Joshua to help promote him to the world. Conor remained undefeated under the Matchroom banner until Eddie secured him a fight for the WBO, which he won. Eddie gave him a new contract with Matchroom in 2021. He arranged a huge fight with Chris Eubank Jr. in 2022. The fight was cancelled after Conor failed the drug test. He was suspended from fighting, and his entire career was suddenly on the line. The only man who stood by him was Eddie, who faced massive criticism for defending him publicly. Eddie even loaned him hundreds of thousands of dollars while he was away from the ring. Later, he once again secured that big fight with Chris Eubank Jr., this time at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in front of 60,000 fans. Despite Conor losing that fight, Eddie continued standing by his side. And for the third time, he arranged another fight with Eubank at Tottenham Stadium, and this time Conor won. Yet in the end in 2026, Conor decided to sign with Eddie's sworn enemy without even bothering to give him a phone call. That's why Eddie Hearn was completely devastated when he heard the news, and honestly, he still is to this day.
I blame myself because I forgot it was boxing. I just felt that the loyalty that we've shown would never ever put us in this position. And I just felt that I never really needed to push Conor Benn to sign a new contract. I can't believe it. And, you know, look, I mean, it's no secret. Like, we lent Conor money. He couldn't pay. He needed the money. I'll do anything for Eddie. What he's done for me is just, I will never, ever, ever forget it. Because I was down, I was out, I was finished. And he kept me going. He stood by me. He never backed down. And I will never, ever, forget that. You did. That's it. And it's over.
Then unfortunately, Dana, as was his custom, gloated over him to the utmost degree.
I think you saw this week, I am really beating up babies. Is there a bigger pussy than Eddie Hearn?
He was quite upset that Conor Benn left him.
Is there a bigger than Eddie Hearn? This guy's supposed to be your friend. You're crying, he made more money. He's going to make more money, and he had the right to match it. He could have matched it.
I think he said he tried and Conor Benn wouldn't return his calls.
What a crock of shit. We're literally beating up babies.
And this is exactly the Dana White we all know, in the flesh. The man who destroys his competitors, not by competing with them directly, but by stealing their biggest talents, and then stepping on their promotions until they're pushed to the edge of bankruptcy. And there are many examples of this, far too many to mention in a single video. But imagine this, the move he made out of revenge ended up becoming one of the biggest mistakes of his career. The thing Eddie kept repeating even before that news broke.
I think there'll be a revolt from the UFC fighters, to be honest, because I think they'll be thinking, why are we making so much less than the boxers?
And what later became one of the biggest fears inside TKO Group Holdings was that UFC fighters would start expressing their frustration after reports revealed that Conor Benn would make $15 million for just one fight with Zuffa Boxing. That's nowhere close to what even UFC champions are making today. And what makes it worse is that Conor Benn isn't even a big name in the MMA world. I could easily name at least 5 fighters right now who are more famous than him. In fact, most MMA fans didn't even know who he was until this Zuffa announcement. But to be fair, how many fighters in the UFC can fill a stadium twice in a row? And as the saying goes, you're not worth what you produce, you're worth what you can negotiate. And just as Eddie Hearn predicted, a large number of prominent UFC fighters came out criticizing the massive pay gap between what Dana White paid Conor Benn and what the fighters themselves earn. The situation looked almost identical to the outrage among fighters when the Reebok partnership was announced back in 2014. These statements from fighters became the harshest criticism directed at the UFC since the fighter paid debacle gained attention 15 years ago.
I mean, I think it's bothered everybody. If one guy's getting paid 15 million and the other guy's getting 15 grand, I think that's a big difference, mate.
But in that division, he's nowhere near the best. But yet you've given that amount of money to somebody that I'd say is not the best. But then you got like people over here that are at the top of that. I'm going to use Francis Ngannou simply because this is an easy one that's kind of come out. At the top of his game, heavyweight champion of the world, and was broke and having to borrow money.
Your man Ben, Conor Benn, is what he's worth. How much is McGregor worth? Factoring in inflation alone. My contract is since 2018.
I don't even know who Conor Benn is. Like, I could see it being out of like an ego thing. They really paid him $15 million. It's like, yeah, it's crazy how you just put in so much work in the UFC, build this name, create this character, be this star, and it's like, I'm not making $15 million fight.
I mean, I don't feel jaded, but I'm like, I want $15 million for one fight too.
To downplay these accusations, TKO Group Holdings moved quickly to contain the crisis. Fearing the possibility of a fighter revolt, the company's COO Mark Shapiro stepped forward to clarify that the deal with Conor Benn was for only one fight, and that the money involved in the agreement was being paid by Sella and Turki Al Sheikh, not from the pockets of Zuffa or TKO.
As you know, our partner in Zuffa Boxing is Sella. They're the financial backer of the entity. I would add that the reported purse, which I believe was around $15 million, but the reported purse, I'm not confirming or denying, that Conor will be paid for this super fight in 2026 is not TKO going out of pocket. Sella, led by our great partner, Turki Al Sheikh, is covering the purse.
Last week, Dana White was dealing with a double fight week. UFC 326 with its so-called BMF belt, and the fourth event of Zuffa Boxing, headlined by Jai Opetaia and his ongoing issues with the IBF. From the start, Dana went on a long media tour, which he eventually wrapped up with Piers Morgan, not yet knowing what Eddie Hearn had in store for him. But unsurprisingly, because Piers' platform is British, the conversation quickly centered around Dana's feud with Eddie, and even the possibility of a boxing match between them.
Listen, if Eddie wants to box, we can box. We can box if Eddie wants to box. Back in the day, I used to box with all the guys, boxers and UFC guys. I have boxed.
So if Eddie Hearn's up for it, you're on for it.
Absolutely.
Then the discussion shifted to Tommy Aspinall. Dana claimed he wanted to repair their deteriorating relationship, and after 5 months of insults and questioning Tom's willingness to fight, Baldy now realized he needed to speak with him. And honestly, does this liar even believe himself when he says he never attacked Tom?
And Tom and I obviously need to talk. You know, he came out recently, or his dad too, saying that, you know, they felt like I don't know how they said it, but that I had sort of hit on him in the way that I had spoke about, you know, his eye injury, which was absolutely positively not the case. Tom Aspinall is a guy that I respect. He's been great, you know, to work with. You know, never once did I question his injury or speak negatively about it.
Still, isn't it strange that he released the interview at the exact same time as Eddie's announcement, even though the episode had actually been recorded about a week earlier? And I'll make a claim without any proof whatsoever that he delayed publishing it until Thursday because he had inside information. On that day, Thursday, March the 5th, Eddie made a brilliant move that hit Dana like a thunderbolt. He announced that his talent management company had signed Tom Aspinall, the heavyweight champion, whose career had previously been managed entirely by his father, Andy Aspinall. Now, Eddie will represent Aspinall both inside and outside the cage. And just like that, MMA has another Ali Abdelaziz. The funniest part of the story is that Tommy is Eddie's first client, which basically means he created this management company for one reason only: to get revenge on Dana. And I'm certain that the upcoming negotiations for Tom Aspinall's next fight will be an absolute nightmare. I personally know the names of several managers whom the UFC simply refuses to deal with directly. What made things even worse is that Tommy immediately followed that announcement with another one on his YouTube channel. In the video, he showed the signing ceremony in Monaco, and the entire episode was essentially a criticism of how badly the UFC has treated him.
There's loads of reasons I want to do this, but actually you deserve to be treated in a specific way for what you've achieved.
To be completely honest, this move by Tommy will likely do nothing but widen the gap between him and Dana White, especially considering he has no more than 2 fights left on his UFC contract. But if there's one man who has every right to burn Dana's heart, it's Tommy. Since the moment he was accused of lacking the fighting spirit to finish fights, Dana has done nothing but publicly insult him and lie about him. He never even contacted him once during the period when Tommy had to undergo 3 surgeries.
Apparently he's going in for a second surgery, or just had it, and by surgery I mean injections. Get a quote from him. God forbid I say something about it. Go ahead.
And on the very same day as that announcement, Dana held that lifeless press conference, one I wouldn't wish even on my worst enemy. When he was asked about Tommy signing with Eddie Hearn, he completely brushed it off.
We don't have any issues with Eddie. They can get whoever they want to represent him. Tito Ortiz used to represent people and we got it done.
The following day, which was weigh-in day for the UFC, the day Dana White and the matchmakers had to absorb that painful news. Meanwhile, Matchroom's talent management division, represented by Eddie Hearn, hosted an introductory press conference for their new client, Tom Aspinall. Despite the formal tone of the event, it still included several subtle jabs directed at Dana and the UFC. But behind the scenes, and in contrast to the calm and polished conference, Eddie and Tommy were far more aggressive, openly criticizing the UFC's financial model and the way the organization treats its fighters, especially what happened with Tommy's eyes situation. And honestly, in just 24 hours, Eddie promoted Tommy more than Dana had in 6 years.
And the reality is that when he was headlining in front of 20,000 on pay-per-view, he was receiving probably half the amount of money that I would pay a boxer for a British title fight at York Hall, Bethnal Green in front of 1,200 people.
Something that I've learned from this whole injury thing and the backlash that I've got and stuff like that, you got to make as much money and be as ruthless as possible. Nobody in there is your friend.
I wouldn't say a dozen, but I've had over half a dozen quite big name UFC fighters contact me in the last 12 hours. And I'm not going to sign all of them, but they're fascinated by this because they feel like they're not getting what they deserve.
When I talked through Tom Aspinall's purses, I nearly fell off the chair. Because I know that if that was our business, it'd be making 10 times as much money.
As if those past few days weren't already heavy enough for Dana, Fight Night itself began with another betting scandal. Now, I know he denied that anything suspicious had occurred,
All bullshit.
but that tweet claiming that a relative of Michael Johnson had been taken hostage and predicting that Michael would be knocked out in the second round. Was that really just a coincidence? Then during UFC 326, the Ultimate Fighting Championship experienced electrical problems for the first time, and during their first appearance on CBS, marking their return to national television, we witnessed one of the strangest fights in history when Cody was hit with an endless stream of nutshots. Then, as those fouls kept happening, Dana White showed up and announced what many considered the biggest failure in the company's history.
We're going to put on the best card we've ever done for that White House event.
After an entire year of promises about delivering the greatest fight card in history, what we ultimately got was a card that would have been considered a normal PPV event back in 2015. And after that main event, which didn't impress fans who believe in the BMF title narrative, Dana walked into the press conference. And the last thing he wanted to hear about was Eddie Hearn and Tom Aspinall.
And Eddie Hearn's you don't want to box anybody. Come on. Eddie Hearn boxing.
He said he would, and he said it'd spark you out.
Listen, if that's what, then fly out here, we'll go over to the Apex and we can box.
The following night, after Jai captured the first title in the history of Zuffa boxing, amid the controversy surrounding his dispute with the IBF, Dana White appeared once again, but this time as a boxing promoter, not as the head of the UFC. And whenever he does something he actually enjoys, his enthusiasm ramps up, which led to a fierce attack on Eddie Hearn.
Is he a rival promoter?
He's another
I haven't
promoter.
seen a f***ing rival anything from Eddie Hearn or any of these other guys. He's a manager now. Who gives a shit? We deal with lots of different people. I wouldn't call Eddie Hearn a rival anything.
Dana, going back to
He's a manager. What is Eddie Hearn going to bring to the management table that we haven't seen in the last 25 years?
I honestly don't know how he still considers himself the savior of boxing, while at the same time tearing apart the most beautiful sport on this planet.
I don't know why I expected more from any of these people, but boy, let me tell you what, it's about to get good.
Then finally, one of these cowards in the press row dared to ask a question about the $15 million being paid to Conor Benn. Dana's answer, completely detached from reality, reminded me of the way his master in the White House responds to questions.
Why is it a bad thing when guys make more money? You know what I mean? It's never a bad thing when guys make more money. It's always a good thing when there's more money in the sport.
After Dana's emotional attempt to take revenge on Eddie Hearn completely backfired, fighters, fans, and almost everyone connected to the world of combat sports reached a clear conclusion by the end of that disastrous week. If this man, along with TKO, is not stopped, they could push the sport we love right to the edge of disaster.